Okay, here's the big question, and it's clearly the elephant in the room. Will the iPad Pro replace the Apple laptop? There have been a lot of interesting think pieces and debates as to what Apple is doing with the new iPad Pro lineup. Now, if you watched the Apple Spring event, you probably already have your finger on the buy button to pre-order the Apple iPad Pro. If you're like me, you probably bought an iPad in 2018, I purchased the iPad Pro, and I bought it under the presumption that the device would be able to run Pro apps. At the time, and frankly, even now, the 2018 iPad is still the most powerful tablet on the market. Apple never made apps that took potential of the full power of the iPad. When Apple released the iPad OS, it blew the gates open to show everything that the iPad could do. It was incredible software, and it streamlined the iPad experience so much that the distinction between the iPad and the MacBook was minimal, but it was still there. The iPad was good for people who wanted consumption and who wanted to do light typing, web browsing, some buying, play some games, and that's where it began to shine. But in the eyes of people like me who were professional type users who wanted a more portable device but wouldn't be hamstrung by a full laptop, the iPad didn't fulfill the promise that it initially set up. By 2020, Apple released a new iPad that had a slight boost in RAM, but really, on paper, was essentially the same as the iPad 2018, and there was no need to change. The problem was there was still a demand for pro-level apps, and the 6 gigs of RAM in the iPad Pro 2020 was insufficient to meet those needs. And frankly, I don't think Apple had a solution figured out for touchscreen controls, which is what the iPad excelled at, versus keyboard controls that you can get on your laptop. I mean, the question still remained, why not just use a laptop? And that's what I asked myself, why don't I just use a laptop? And like I said before, it was just too heavy and I didn't want to carry all that around. Sometimes I just wanted to sit on my couch, enjoy some basic editing, and then pick up the experience on my laptop and do some of the heavy lifting. Apple's Magic Keyboard came along and changed all that. So even though now the iPad is kind of like a laptop, it's really not. It's an iPad with a keyboard accessory, and for people like me, that's awesome. So now my intended workflow is to have an iPad Pro that I can do editing anywhere, and then pick back up on my Mac Mini, which would be hooked up to my monitor, where I can sit at a desk and utilize the power of that. But this is a long-winded, roundabout way of explaining why I think the new iPad Pro is prime at WWDC to launch pro-level apps, specifically Logic and Final Cut Pro. Shout out to Travis MCP for the initial inspiration to do this video. You can find a link to his channel below. But the dramatic upgrade in the new iPad Pro, which will allow users to tap into 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, is something that is a huge tell and can't be ignored. The new iPad Pro M1 chip is the same chip and the same RAM that is currently in the new line of MacBook Airs, the MacBook Mini, and the MacBook Pro. You can use any of their currently launched devices to do better than effective video editing, better than effective sound editing. The existing line of Apple products is more than sufficient. If you're like me and you're an editor that doesn't really cut 4K and red footage and some of the higher end codecs too often, these new devices are more than adequate. And while you can utilize iPad apps on your desktop computer, right now, at least until WDC, it doesn't go the other way around. Or, as Rene Ritchie hypothesized, there may be a new operating system coming that works on both platforms. No more iPad OS, no more Mac OS, maybe something new that creates a synergistic relationship between both platforms, not unlike the Nintendo Switch, where you can start in one area, drop and pick up and go and work somewhere else. Same platform, same applications, same workflow, just a different order of convenience. And that's something that's very attractive. This June, everyone is expecting big surprises for the Mac lineup, and I don't think the iPad is an exception. I think Travis MCP is right. I'm hoping he's right. Pro apps are probably on the way, and I think we're going to see Final Cut Pro X this year. But I also think Rene Ritchie was right too. We won't see Mac apps cross over into the iPad, not in the existing framework. I think Apple is on the verge of releasing some kind of new architecture for both platforms. If the rumors of the M1/2/M1X are true, we're going to have a very powerful line of streamlined hardware that takes full advantage of all of Apple's capabilities, and the lower end systems like the iPad and the MacBook and the Mac Mini will be more than enough for the basic needs of people like me who do editing work and creative work, but also don't need powerhouse, super expensive high-end machines. But what do you think? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think Mac future-proof their iPad again, which was already the most powerful device on the planet, which was already way more powerful than any Apple in the system, and quadrupled its power just because? Or do you think Apple has something on the horizon? Let me know what you think in the comments below about Apple, iPad, WWDC, or anything Apple related, and I'll see you in the next video.